Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Best Darn Everything, our bi-weekly spin-off show where we take a break from talking about The Simpsons to talk about pretty much anything else that we feel like talking about. Today, we are very excited because we have a show that both Richie and I are very fond of and a guest who has got some special insight to share. Can't wait to talk to y'all about Peacemaker, but before we get to that, of course, introducing to you, as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I feel like we're like 2 months late on getting on this Peacemaker train here, but Miles told me we got to have somebody special on for this show. So you got a lot to live up for or up to on this one. So this will be exciting. I'll let Miles do the rest here. Let me throw it back to you. The man, the myth, the Mern in our group, I would say. Here's Miles.
Thank you for coming with your James Gunn hairstyle today. That's very on brand for this performance today, for this podcast, whatever. I'm really I just realized, knowing our guests the way that I do, Colton Jones, comedian here from Fort Worth, Texas. Knowing him the way I do, I just realized there's a good chance that he's going to be like, by the way, I've never seen Peacemaker. I just thought this would be funny. But welcome, my friend. How are you today, Colton?
Just to clarify, Miles, I watched it twice, but my special experience is I offhandedly mentioned to you that I had made a contribution to the TV tropes page for this TV series.
And that was enough to qualify you as an expert in my eyes.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, I also, this show is great. I watched it twice, and it's way better than I thought it was going to be. I would say that.
I agree with you 100% on that. I think maybe one of the more interesting things about Peacemaker is they took arguably the least likable character from the movie Suicide Squad. And
Suicide Squad, don't piss the fans off, Miles.
Which I honestly, as I said that, I'm going to take a guess here because I don't know which one's which.
I think the better one was the Suicide Squad, if I'm not mistaken.
So Suicide Squad came first and was trash, and then the Suicide Squad actually was the decent one with Peacemaker in it. Great movie.
Unless we're completely backwards.
I think they were both considered decently funny, but the second one is considered better. Yeah. And it is the one that has Peacemaker in it.
That's the one that we're looking for sure. I'll be honest, I did not care for the first Suicide Squad, whichever, or just Suicide Squad, the one that had Jared Leto's Joker in it. I was not an enjoyable film, but I didn't even realize that the Suicide Squad or the second Suicide Squad, whichever one is correct, I didn't even realize that just kind of showed up on my HBO one day, and I'm like, oh, all right, I guess I'll watch this.
Yeah.
Were you guys hyped before that came out?
No, I mean, I thought it was going to be kind of lame, I guess. The DC movies have been so bad for so long, with one kind of big exception, which is certain things in the Batman universe, I guess. Every half a decade, they nail something in Batman. But other than that, they kind of just make bad movies, right?
Seems that way.
I thought the first Wonder Woman was pretty decent.
I thought
Wonder Woman was good.
My gosh, I totally disagree with you.
Colton and I actually had a debate about this not too long ago. I remember, or it might have been you and Matt.
That movie is arguably worse than Wonder Woman in 1984. I know
why
everybody likes that.
Dude, what?
Miles, what kind of people are you bringing on the show?
Defend that, honestly. Take a moment and defend that logic. I'm curious.
It's not because Wonder Woman 1984 is good, by the way. It's because the original Wonder Woman is so unwatchable, dude. It is unwatchable to me. I hate it.
Hold up. Did you watch it?
I've tried to watch it 5 different times and never been able to finish it.
Do you just hate
4
women
times
specifically, or is it just Wonder Woman?
Miles, you should know that I have a degree from a women's college, so all of your negative anticipation for me to be just a sexist jerk. Actually, I think that's why I hate it so much, because I know what women are capable of, and it's better fucking movies than that.
You think that all women are wonderful and that this highlights a bad person?
Yeah, I just don't think we need to empower every Wonder Woman, If they had nailed it, I would be celebrating it, but...
Good save.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I do disagree. I actually really like the first Wonder Woman a lot. I did think the second Wonder Woman was absolute garbage, and played into the whole complaint that a lot of people had of it's oh, you've got this woman who can do anything, but she'll give it all up for a boy. And it was I don't know.
Not even that. My big thing is if dialogue feels like it was written by a group of people trying to put a movie together, then if it feels cheesy and forced, then it's just going to disengage me from the movie. Actually, that's my biggest complaint about Peacemaker, is that like 3 or 4 episodes, I was kind of like, this is kind of like really cheesy, bad writing. But they also have moments of really good writing in Peacemaker, so they're kind of the wash there. But with Wonder Woman, especially when it's like in Old English or whatever, just completely fucking unwatchable to me. Maybe that's like I'm telling on myself and I just hate a certain shtick, but God, it was really bad in that. And especially in the first movie, when they first went to the island, totally took me out of the movie. I literally forgot what had happened. I had to go look up the IMDb plot because I was so just put off by the fake Shakespearean garbage. That's
See, I might just not be smart enough to like hate that movie because I don't know Shakespeare, nor do I have a degree from a men's or women's college. So really, I think that one might be on me. But that's cool. I understand not everybody. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Again, I liked it. But we're actually here to talk about Peacemaker, so we'll transition to that. I'm actually very curious to know, did either of you know of that character before the Suicide Squad came out?
No.
Same. Like, just kind of came out of nowhere.
That's again, kind of, I think, James Gunn's specialty, though, is like the you read a lot in articles like the toys nobody else wants to play with. James Gunn's really good at having history with those characters and actually writing for those characters. And, you know, I thought he wrote the entire script for the series, like when COVID first started. He just sat down and wrote the whole thing out from what I read. So you can blame him for the good and the not so good parts in the writing, I guess, for that. Even though I'm sure there were tons of reread. Yeah. But I mean, he's a guy that likes to play with the thrown away toys. And
I think the biggest example would be Guardians of the Galaxy. And honestly, I don't know if there's other characters that you're referencing right now, but the Guardians of the Galaxy definitely were a comic book group that I was not very familiar with at all. And now they're probably one of the more mainstream comics that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think both Guardians and Peacemaker, he uses these characters that are less well known, so there's less resistance from people when he then adds elements to tell his own story, tell a more modern story. Like with Peacemaker, all of the stuff about him potentially being a closeted bisexual man and his father hating him for that, I don't see that in a comic book from like the 80s. And I mean, maybe they were talking about that stuff. Comics are great, but you know, the fact that they were able to work all that in and you don't have a legion of fans going, that's not what Peacemaker's about.
Batman would never do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, honestly, like nerd culture is fantastic and it brings a lot of really good stuff out. A lot of our favorite things that we talk about on this show are very much in that like spectrum. But nerds also ruin shit a lot. Like they get all uppity about their women's degrees and how much, certain female characters suck, for instance. Nerd shit, man. It's good and it's
Wonder Woman. That's how we're gonna represent strong women. Wonder Woman.
Yeah, exactly. She is a wonder. No, but I think with Peacemaker too, again, going back to that idea that they purposely took like not the worst, I guess, just the least likable character from the movie. And when you first start watching it, the first thing you see is that epic opening intro that Richie like immediately like. As soon as I started watching the show, he's like, "You're not going to skip the intro on this one." And honestly, like it kind of grew on me. It became part of like the ritual of watching the show as you get that goofy introduction with all the characters dancing out of character. And again, though, that's like your first time seeing Peacemaker after he shot the dude in the movie. He's got like his arms doing like the cheerleader dance off thing, and immediately you're just kind of like, what am I watching right now?
The James Gunn piece.
It's an interesting way to kind of dip your toe into the character though a little bit. At least see, and with Eagle E showing up at the end, at first you just think that's like almost just like a thing for the opening, but then when he's actually introduced into the show, you're like, oh my god, like this is the best character ever.
No, that is like James Gunn has said that mostly the dance scene routine is there just because he likes dancing and he's going to put it in everything he ever does. So he just did it. But, obviously it's much more in depth in Peacemaker than it is when you're watching Baby Groot dance or something like that.
Right. The one thing I like about the show is the tone. Like, it's not the one thing I like about it, but probably my favorite thing about it is the consistent tone and how everything is at the same pitch. There's a lot of switch between like emotional and funny moments that can happen at the same time, and the show puts them all in the same context, so you don't feel like you're watching. Sometimes, especially with superhero shows, you feel like you're watching two different things. Like I'm watching the superhero that's having these fantastic fights, and then also this very serious drama about this guy's personal life. But this show, it all takes place at the same pitch. The only thing I think that maybe it causes is some inconsistent acting because some of the actors don't know how to handle it as well. But then some of them handle it really well. Like John Cena handles it really well. And the guy who's, I can't remember what they call him in the show, but he's the Deadpool ripoff.
Vigilante.
Vigilante.
Freddie Stroma played
He's
him.
great, and that actor's great in that role, but it very clearly is a Deadpool. Hey, we should put Deadpool in this too, right?
But like, did you
I didn't mind it at all.
Did you?
I didn't mind it at all.
He might have been the best character on the show, like in my opinion, just because
I was actually going to comment that I thought
for Peacemaker.
Yeah,
agreed. Yeah, I really liked. I think my favorite scenes in the show were the two of them just hanging out and chit chatting. Essentially, specifically their dialogue was fantastic with one another. And then there's that scene where they like go and play in the forest with all their weapons and whatnot, and like that was just super fun. But I do agree with you. You can't watch Vigilante and not think like, were they not able to afford Ryan Reynolds for this? Or?
there's a lot of fan art with the two of them being together for like a TV show team up, and when like around episode 4 or 5 when it came out, after he went to the prison and whooped all those white supremacist asses, then everyone wanted to see that.
That's actually an interesting point too. Is Colt was just talking about how like they do such a interesting job with it being funny and serious at the same time. The villain of this series is like a awful fucking person. Like, I mean, like he's literally the leader of the KKK. And they somehow make that like comical to some extent, but also I think it's almost necessary to have somebody that awful to be a villain in the Peacemaker universe, because Peacemaker himself, not the greatest guy.
And that's
Miles, you know what this show feels like to me? I'm sorry.
You're good. Good.
What this show feels like to me is when a very funny comic is at the open mic and they start going into material and you're like, is this about to get super weird and racist? But then they kind of like nail it, or they say it just the right way so that it doesn't like turn the crowd. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's like episode 7 of this show. I feel like I'm like, this is going so weird. But I'm sitting next to my dad watching the show. We're sitting next to each other on the couch, and we were watching specifically that episode. And I turn to him and I just go, it's 2021. John Cena plays a closeted gay superhero whose dad is the leader of the Klan on an HBO show. And he's like, you're right. I never thought I'd see that.
Oh, that's actually oddly wholesome. That's a good story. Yeah, they're pushing some interesting boundaries for sure. I think one of the biggest what the fuck moments I had was when is it Robert Pattinson? Is that no? That's not. That's Batman. Shit, Robert Patrick.
I was just gonna go along with it. Yeah,
you're just like, is that Cal? We didn't expect that showing up, but no, when he goes to prison and he's walking. I don't remember what episode it is, but he's walking into the prison, and at first you see all the people getting up, and you think that he's about to get his ass whooped or something, like something big is going to happen. And then he just goes and kicks a dude off of his spot on the wall, which, this dude does not look opposing at all. So it's something like it would be, you wouldn't expect to happen. Then all these random prisoners just start hailing the fucking white dragon. And you're just like, what is happening right now?
Do they do the real Nazi salute? Because I remember Marvel chickened out of the Nazi salute. They did 2 arms with the fists. They wouldn't do the real Nazi salute. But in this show, they do.
It's HBO.
They really use it, right?
I believe they did. I mean, now, honestly, Cole, I only watched the show once, so you're twice the expert.
I thought they bowed. I thought they kneeled, and
they might have kneeled. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was very clearly a Nazi, tribute of some sort. Yeah.
But I mean, again, you've got a character like Peacemaker who, like, again, you've said it numerous times already. You're not supposed to like this guy. Like, going into the show, you're not supposed to like this guy. And the show does a really good job of making you feel bad for Chris Smith, the character, because
he becomes very sympathetic. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it too. Like, there are a lot of the way through the series, I was like, I think John Cena might be my least favorite character in the show because I knew who he still like. He was still this guy that's acting and talking like a child half the time. But I mean, by the end, like I liked everybody. I feel like Vigilante was a little bit up top, but like I would go back and forth with all the characters that aren't named Vigilante or Eagly on who's the best on this. But I think Cena in particular, like I did not expect this kind of acting coming out of him. Like that scene where he sits down and plays the piano, he actually played that piano from what I read. And like, it's what Colton was saying earlier. There's a lot of scenes where people are, spouting off dick jokes, but then they turn around and have like this heartbreaking speech about something that went on in their personal life. Mm-hmm. And like, this show had a lot more heart than I was expecting. It made you feel for everybody at some point. Even when, with The Economist, when like he's been getting shit on the whole time about dyeing his beard, and then he finally admits it. And like, even that was a sad moment when he's admitting why he dyes his beard. And it's like, what the hell? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think one thing you're saying that the show kind of gets at is that we all are built up from different contexts, and like being a good person in your own context is challenging. Like for Chris Smith, the Peacemaker, right? He's clearly like this murderous psychopath. But then once you get the backstory of his life and you understand how he was built up to be that way, right? Then you understand why his actions are the best he's capable of. He's doing the best he can. And Adebayo, she is in this very difficult position. And at first it's really easy to see her as like, why are you lying to everybody? Why can't you be honest about what you need from your partner? Why can't you be honest at work and just say what you need, or be more confident at work and say what you need? But then by the end, you see that her crowning moment is to come out and say very directly to the press everything that needs to happen. I'm going to make the declarative change that needs to happen for all of these different characters. So that's good writing. At the same time, I thought a lot of her character in particular, I was not very enthused by throughout the show. I didn't, I just didn't, I was kind of like, some of her scenes were some of the weaker scenes to me in the show personally.
She saw an eagle hug a dude. I mean, come on, that is not a weak moment.
I love that running bit so much, where like he gets the hug and nobody saw it or whatever, and like everybody's like, yeah, whatever. But then when it really happens, it's just such a crowning achievement. But I agree with a lot of what you said, and I think like honestly, I think that having Cena being in the closet essentially as a bisexual guy, I think that actually really in the 2021 perspective is a good filter to kind of see like, oh, this guy, like he's not really a bad person. He is internally struggling with his own demons, that he was raised in this awful environment where he wasn't allowed to be himself. It's impressive. It's borderline impressive how well they're able to make somebody that, again, you really hate in this movie that you've seen him in. And you really start to feel for him and root for him and see that he is evolving as best as he possibly can be.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think in a lot of the stuff about Peacemaker sexuality, they don't like throw it in your face and be like, this is a big deal. It's just stuff that it's just you figure out, and it's just a quick little mention here or there, really, or a scene with him and Vigilante in bed with that woman that he tied up, which sounds ridiculous coming out of my mouth, but it happens. But I feel like they just nonchalantly kind of go over it without throwing it in your face, which always makes it more believable when you do that. Like, these characters, for the most part, felt real, if that makes sense to what I'm saying.
Right.
Is, like,
he's not a gay character whose every motivation, every purpose, and every action is influenced by his homosexuality.
Right.
But it is a part of his struggle, in a way that defines and causes conflict about who he really is, like, in the world.
Yeah, and I want to say you were talking about Adebayo a little while ago. I'm kind of with that trope online of where she might actually be a metahuman of some kind because she took what, like 2 hits with the cow while she was wearing that helmet, and you weren't even supposed to be able to do one without like breaking your skull open or something like that, and she did it twice. She might be a superhero.
That's an interesting point too. I did laugh, Colton, earlier when you mentioned like her crowning achievement, and literally the end of the series is her crowning achievement. That I thought was pretty funny. But I am curious to know. You said that you had contributed to the TV Tropes website.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Like, what motivated you to do that, and what was your experience like?
You can just it's like Wikipedia. You can just type on there and see if your stuff makes it.
Did it make it?
I read every piece of media I've ever watched or observed in my entire life. I have at some point also read the TV Tropes, the entire TV Tropes page for it. I love TV Tropes. I think it's one of the most amazing. Is this just where I rant about TV Tropes for a little bit? Have you guys ever read TV
No, honestly, I haven't. I'm very familiar with IMDb, but I have not used TV Tropes at all.
TV Tropes is less about like the actors that are in it or like backstage trivia, and more about the overall kind of thematic elements that are going throughout the work. Basically, have you ever seen it before?
No.
Nope.
It's a large database, and there's 2 databases. There's films, media, books, fan fiction. I mean, everything. Everything that has an audience has a TV Tropes page. And it's cross-referenced with a glossary of tropes. So like crowning moment of awesome is a trope. So you can go to the page for crowning moment of awesome, and it's an index of every single instance of that thematic trope appearing in a work of art that's been logged on TV Tropes.
Interesting.
So like, then you can click, okay, well, there's a moment in Peacemaker where Adebayo literally puts on a helmet and inserts herself into the situation and stands up for what's right? That's a crowning moment of awesome. So now I'm going to go look at Peacemaker. Well, here's a list of every single thematic trope or archetype we as a community have identified in this piece. So you could go to the Peacemaker page right now, and it would say like, I don't know, I can't access I don't have internet in my house. So this little phone that I'm talking to you guys on is how I would read my TV Tropes page.
Sure. That's still really cool that you're like just motivated to. I mean, that's essentially what we do on this podcast is we talk about different. We break down and analyze, and you're just taking that pen to paper or fingers to keyboard or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but it's an entirely crowd sourced. There's no like central voice, right?
So it's the Bitcoin of internet reviews.
It's the Wikipedia of internet reviews, more appropriately. Yeah, it's people. You have to be able to say, this is why I think this. This is the moment in this movie that makes me think this, and explain it. And then there are moderators on the site who read it and make sure it's not like example of a badass girl in this movie, and then it's actually just like bullshit or whatever. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say? It's slightly moderated, but it's also crowdfunded, exactly like Wikipedia is.
It's still really cool. Again, I think it's neat that you were able to take your ideas and share them. And you were saying like they could or could not get approved for the page. Like, were all the things that you put down actually added to?
No, I write in all the time, dude. I participate in the community. I think in your head you have it that this is a credit. I was just trying to share with you that I love this show and I was writing about it online, but it's completely crowd. It's an online community that you can anonymously be part of to help curate really like full literary breakdowns of this stuff than just like this is the actors that were in it, and this is
this show
funny
was
stuff.
fun. It was good. It's more in depth than that.
Yeah, it's more like what does this show talk about? What other works have talked about it? What are some funny things? Like, there's so many funny things you wouldn't even know that you see in movies all the time. But when you see them in the TV Tropes Index, you start to realize that movies just do the same stuff with different colors and lights around it all the time. Like, that's how stories are told. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because originality is just stealing 1,000 different things and putting them in a new order, right? So, like, in movies, and especially, I mean, you know, the Harry Potter, Star Wars is basically the same movie, right?
Magic child, chosen, orphan. You know, yeah, I can see the
well, they're
there.
both honestly just rewrites of King Arthur. That's what's so great about Peacemaker. This series, I've tried so many times to think of like what it's really ripping off of, but it is really good at originality. Is stealing 1,000 different things. I mean, it steals Deadpool. It steals brain control from every alien movie ever. It steals KKK problems. None of these, and on their own, are original plot lines. But the way that the writers and the actors throw them into this pot of chaos and have this really unique story of this character Peacemaker be told is fantastic. It's the best part of the series. Really,
I don't know. The best part of the series for me might have been Eagly killing people.
Eagly is
that
funny.
Was freaking awesome.
Eagly is fun. Well, while you're kind of in a pitching mode, why don't you tell everybody real quick about your podcast with Steve Gamble, Poor Baby, where they can find that, and then we'll talk about where we think season 2 might go.
Okay, Poor Baby is an hour-long show where me and Steve we fuck around. Hang on, I have our lineup right here. This is our lineup for when we record. You can see it. This is our plan. Okay. So me and Steve are both comedians. This is every episode. We say hello for 10 minutes, and then at 10 minutes, I'm allowed to turn the piano on and start playing with it. At 15 minutes, we both write a song. We write a hymn. So I'll write a very simple kind of melody line, and then Steve will give me, "Oh, praise, oh, heavenly praise." And then we improv the hymn together, and he'll do backup vocals. And then we have a game where we read each other questions off of cards. And then we do a game where we introduce another person as a character, and then the opposite host interviews that character, right? So last week, Steve said this week, and it's all improv. So when you're being brought on as a character to be interviewed, we have a sound drop for the character. You find out the character, you hear the sound drop, now you're being interviewed as the character. You know what I'm saying?
Very fun.
So it's very fun to listen to me and Steve kind of just try to make each other funnier every week and do bits. We also have the beat building bit. We're both stand-up comics, so I found a beat track on the piano, and I just run the beat track, and we use the drum machine to try to keep the energy up as we add tags to a bit for each other.
Oh, fun. That's very cool. I know that you have a background in like performance arts and improv, acting, all that good stuff. So that seems very on brand for you. And I imagine the energy that you and Steve bring together is probably a lot of fun.
We're recording our 10th episode tomorrow for Poor Baby, and it's fun. But the first episode, we were like, let's record something for an hour and see what happens. But immediately, we're both so anal retentive, and we already have a full schedule now for what each episode is. And we just have let the show build itself and tried to find out what's going to be funny if we're pulling each other's funny out. You know what I'm saying? And already by episode 10, we have a full show structure, and we have a few different games that we've created, and now we like to play them every week. So Poor Baby it's very new. You're listening to us both learn how to be podcast hosts, but the ultimate goal is just to have a good time for an hour every week. And it's unedited. So if we say something stupid, we're going to leave it in there as well.
Oh, scary. Yeah. Hopefully you don't out yourself with anything you don't want, out there or whatever, but that's part of comedy, right?
You got to be yourself, man.
Yeah, for sure, dude. For sure. That's really cool. Check out that. I'm assuming it's available all the places that you can download podcasts. Yeah.
Everywhere.
Good job. That's lesson 1 as a podcast host, is just put it everywhere. Let people find it.
Put it everywhere you can. I don't even know what Pocket Cast is, but if you have Pocket Cast and you want to listen to Poor
It's
Baby,
there.
go right the fuck ahead. Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. So I had mentioned we all obviously very much enjoyed season 1 of Peacemaker. I think that the characters, as you mentioned, some of them we are more invested in than others, but even the minor characters, you still felt like you wanted to know their story. You wanted to see what drove them. The whole crew that was, the special task force that was working with Cena or Peacemaker or whatever, all of them were interesting in their own way. Where do we think that season 2 is going? Because it has been confirmed there will be a season 2. And I will also say that James Gunn, I read, he did say that they're already working on a new intro that he wants to be even, bigger and more zany than the introduction for season 1. But introductions aside, where can we take these characters? Where are we going to go that's going to keep driving this story and keeping us invested?
Well, I'm going to say that they're going to have to start season 2 on the run because Amanda Waller's daughter just outed the Suicide Squad, essentially. So I don't think she's just going to let that go. So I assume that they're going to have to, they're probably going to have a target on their back. But then, most shows pick up at this spot where they've already been on the run when the second season starts. And Amanda Waller shows up and there's some kind of new threat that she's like, only they can take care of this. You guys are, Task Force X, basically. So we need you to handle this threat. And then she'll have some crazy plot device in there where she wants them to all die while also taking out what she needs them to take out.
That's a good guess.
Yeah, it's a solid guess. Colton, you have any insight or anything that you think that you see coming?
Couple thoughts. First off, new intro, already gut feeling, 1,000% going to be worse than the old intro. They're going to try way too hard to nail it.
There's no way it's going to get better.
Yeah, how could
you? Well, they threw some tango in there.
The first season had so much magic in a bottle that shouldn't work, but it's working. I'm kind of concerned about the second season. I would hope for something maybe more like on the run or something might be cool, but I could almost see them trying to flip that on its head somehow. I would like to see something more intimate with Vigilante and Peacemaker. Let's cut the government auxiliary characters. They worked well for one season, but sometimes it's best for a second season to cut fat for some boring characters and find other characters to help two main characters grow in a different direction, right? And I feel like that might be fun to, if they do have to go on the run, maybe you just follow Vigilante and Peacemaker to some foreign country where they have to fight some funny war that is different than American war for some reason or something like that.
That could
maybe
be a really funny
into outer space or something like that.
That could be a really funny taking that fish out of water trope too, because central aspect of Cena is his American patriotism. The whole his trailer is painted like a flag, and everything is he's got a fucking pet eagle. All of that is so patriotic that I like your idea of I don't know, maybe it's too soon, but he's on Ukraine or something, and just having to see how his how that bravado works in that environment.
As you said earlier, it's on HBO. As he said earlier, it's on HBO. So if anybody's going to do that, these will be the guys who do that.
Yeah.
Well, the only issue with that is James Gunn's married to basically the main actress, so he's going to have to write her apart in any script he does.
The main actress.
He's not married. He's married to
Harcourt
Jennifer.
Is his wife.
Yeah, Jennifer Holland.
Oh God!
Well, they got engaged recently. They were dating while the season was coming out, but I saw I think they got engaged or something. So
Colton shaking his head like he's scared that's gonna tank the show.
You're gonna have to write her more parts.
She's great. Yeah, let's focus on her. Actually,
so whenever
she was really good in that.
She was. I liked
great.
Her character
she's a
lot.
great actress, and she's super hot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all accurate, and her character is interesting just because she was kind of the one that figured everything out more or less, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with you, Colton, in that trim the fat characters, not literally the fat people, the trim the fat of the extra characters.
The chainsaw.
Although with this show, maybe actually, maybe.
But yeah, trim the extra characters that you don't necessarily we've kind of seen their story for now, but at the same time, they could still be present. They can be doing their own thing in the background so that maybe they're still involved or they'll come back in a future season if it keeps going.
Like Alan in Die Hard 2, where John McClane still calls him just for that random little,
just for fun. Yeah, like he has to give Harcourt a call for some, like, oh no, I'm here in Ukraine.
I just called to fuck with you, and then he hangs up on me.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I would say is that just with something this, again, the first season, it had so much of this feeling of like, what, this is way better than I thought it was going to be. This shouldn't be working, or this is kind of crazy, and this is going so well. Good art evolves. It doesn't try to just knock it out of the park again. So they need to do something to change the second season, because the first season, a lot of what made it so good was you didn't see so much of it coming, and it was so.
Yeah.
Do you guys
watch? Judo Master's got to come back too, because he's still out there. So we're gonna have to see where that goes, and that kind of plays into the opposite of what you're saying, because they'll probably have episodes where he randomly shows up in the second season, and you didn't expect to see him. So
I liked that character.
I did too. Do either of you watch any of the other DC shows that are out there? Gotham, The Flash, any of those?
Not any of the ones you mentioned.
Which DC shows do you watch?
The only other one I watch is Doom Patrol. I've almost made it through season 3. I have to be in the right mood to watch it. It's very hard to explain Doom Patrol, but Brendan Fraser is a robot. And he's hilarious on the show. And then there's a lot of other good characters on it. But I just find these times it's a lot of mental stuff where you're inside people's heads, quite literally. And I just had to be in the right mood to watch it. And I'll go like 5 episodes, and then I take like a 2-month break, and then I watch 5 more. But I think that also explains why people were bitching why Cyborg wasn't at the end of Peacemaker when all the other character Justice League was. But Cyborg's in almost every episode of Doom Patrol. So I'm going to say that's why he's not there.
Okay, interesting. Colton, do you watch any other DC properties or specifically television shows?
Dude, I don't. I've become a hermit. I don't even have internet at my house anymore. I'm only going to watch Peacemaker season 2, so you guys will invite me back on the podcast.
You don't even have to watch it, dude. You can just read of. There's this website I heard called TV Tropes, where you can like learn anything you need about the show.
It's like I'm in college again, dude.
Yeah. The reason I bring up the other show, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen Doom Patrol, so you'll have to tell me if this is accurate to that as well. But all of the other DC shows that I have ever attempted to watch, which would be things like Arrow, The Flash, Gotham, Supergirl, all of those are very like formulaic. I'm blanking on the type of the word I want to use, but basically it's the type of show where every episode is a contained story of like the Flash has to fight this guy for an hour. And during the course of that hour, you move the overall progression of the story forward, just a tiny little bit. You learn just a little bit about each background character. I've only ever seen DC attempt that type of show. And I personally, like, while there's been shows like that I've enjoyed in the past, honestly, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is like that. That's a show where, you have a self-contained episode every single time, and you're barely moving the arc of the story forward. I find those to be very, very tedious. And I think that one of the most refreshing things about this show is it just was completely different than every other DC property I've seen, even Guardians of the Galaxy, which would be the closest thing I think we can compare it to because of the James Gunn aspect of that. Richie, first of all, does Doom Patrol follow that formula? And second of all, do you all have any thoughts on that?
Doom Patrol is just a mind fucked, really. Like you feel like things are resolved, but then they never really are resolved. And the issue I have with Doom Patrol is that it's almost too talky, which is weird because I usually like that kind of stuff. Like I'd like to see them fight a bad guy every once in a while, which they do, but like they're just always in over their head because they're not supposed to be superheroes. But I feel like you never know it. Like every monster of the week in that show, I guess is the term you would use for like the Flash fighting people.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah.
It's their monsters of the week are like a lot of times literal monsters or somebody that's got like these crazy abilities where like they just mess with your head the whole time. It's really weird. It's very, very different. I would say that. Like I've never watched anything like it, but I don't regard it as like must-see TV. Like it's just something I watch when I'm in the mood. Like I said,
those types of shows. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I assume it's better than the Flash and Arrow, which I've never seen because it looks like Dawson's Creek with superheroes, and I'm just like,
Yeah, it's
Honestly,
anything
yeah.
on the CW network is I will not invest my time in watching that.
I will admit, in like high school and early college, I was way into Smallville. I enjoyed the hell out of that show, and that was very much the monster of the week or the bad guy of the week or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, that Dawson's Creek with superheroes is actually a really accurate way of putting that. That's funny.
Well, now they have
You're
the Archie
welcome,
one
Miles.
too, right?
Oh yeah.
I missed what sorry, what did both of you say?
You go
I said-
first, Ricky.
You're welcome, Miles.
Thanks. And sorry, what did you say, Colton?
God, yeah. Anything on the CW network is dead to me.
Riverdale,
I
that's the
forgot.
show.
Riverdale, the Archie show. That's now it's like, which is so weird. I guess that works. There's another Superman and Lois show coming out though.
It's been
Is
out.
there?
Oh, is it good?
I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I see articles pop up for it. It seems like people kind of like it. It's got different universe Supermans in it.
Will you watch it? Will you watch it? DM me and tell me if I need to watch it.
do the work for him. See if he has to stream it off of his phone.
Exactly. Tell me this was watching off an iPhone 12 mini screen.
Oddly enough, I think the guy that plays Superman is the guy that was the gay guy in Dawson's Creek.
I'm honestly surprised there was only one gay guy in Dawson's Creek, if I'm being honest.
I thought like one of the main 4 characters or 5 characters. It's been so long.
He's I'd love to watch Dawson Creek.
Hey, I watched it at some point. I thought
I watched that when it first came out because again, I watched things on CW back in the day, and I will say that opening song
back when it was
slapped,
the WB.
dude. That opening song slapped and still does. But
I was never watching Dawson's Creek, but that's good for you guys.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. You were also a child when that came out, so we're a little older than you. I think I had a crush on Katie Holmes as the main reason.
Yes, that's what
I
it
watched
was.
it for what
That's
it's worth.
absolutely what it was.
And then Tom Cruise stole her from me, and I still have never forgiven him. That's the real reason I don't like Tom Cruise.
He ruined her.
Oh man. Guys, is there anything big that we're missing on Peacemaker that you guys had that you guys wanted to talk about? Anything that I haven't brought up that you're like, hey, we would not be doing this podcast justice if we didn't discuss?
You asked me that at a terrible time. I'm trying to.
Are you typing boobs into your calculator? What is happening?
Absolutely.
I think it's funny that the actual main plot line of the show was the brain control moths, and we kind of barely mentioned that.
Yeah, you're right. We did. It's because that was almost like the most cliche part of the story because it really was just your classic, brain invader type of thing. That's been around in horror for a very long time. And it was interesting. I did like the reveal when you found out that it was the Abadiah. What's her name?
Adebayo.
Yeah, thank you. Adebayo found out that the leader, like she was using the special glasses or whatever, and she realizes that he's a brain worm. And then that's when Harcourt, basically is like, yeah, I know. And that's where that whole thing kind of goes on like an interesting twist. But yeah, the villains in this were maybe the least, like, other than the Robert Patrick's character, he was interesting. But like the alien villain in this was, I think, the least interesting part of the story.
I was wrong on that actor. 2 different people. Some Tyler Hoechlin guy as Superman. Yes. They were they were the least interesting stuff of the show when they should have been the most interesting, but I think that stands by just all the character stuff going on. And honestly, I felt a little weird with the butterflies because early on there was somebody that was talking to Peacemaker saying they're not what you think they are. It was Judo Master or somebody that told them they're not what you think they are. And it made you think that I thought that the Peacemaker's group were going to be the bad guys at that point. You're going to find out they're killing like innocent creatures, basically, that have been around for thousands of years on Earth. But then, no, it was just that one butterfly that was just trying to trick everybody the whole time. But even at the end, when she's talking to Peacemaker, like, I mean, she brought up a good point about our world. We're kind of killing ourselves off right now. So if they took control, it might be a little bit easier. But Peacemaker made the choice that he made, and we're just going to keep being the humans that we're going to keep being, and self-destructive, but maybe have a little bit of heart every now and then.
They use the whole thing. They build up this alien plot the whole time, and then they just use it to retell Aesop's Hound and the Dog story, where the dog's like, "Yeah, I have a leash, but he feeds me anytime I want." And the wolf goes, "Yeah, but I'd rather not have a leash."
Yeah,
That's the whole. It's Aesop.
yeah. And
with Nazis.
With Nazis, yeah. I think that could actually be an interesting idea in season 2. Is now that we have spent so much time establishing this core group of essentially our heroes of the story, our protagonists, if you will, the villain in season 2 could become a much more central part of the plot. And if they actually did write a interesting villain as a foil for Cena's character, I could see that being real fun. I honestly I almost hope they go with a more real world situation, because like there was kind of a weird dichotomy between, like, on one hand you have the dragon leader dude who's like the super villain who is also a Nazi, which is very grounded in reality and a lot in reality, and then you've got the butterflies happening, which was again interesting until it really wasn't. Kind of a weird pairing there.
Yeah, but like, oh my gosh, I thought Vigilante was going to get shot up at the end of that fight against the white supremacists, because they all had those Uzis right there pointed at them. That was terrifying for the Vigilante fans out there. I know, but yeah, it's weird going from, like, I kind of thought it was going to go the route with Peacemaker's dad getting a butterfly, so that they were going to combine like the two forces and have like the ultimate bad guy. But that would be a trope, I feel like, to like supercharge the lead villain, basically. So I kept waiting for that to happen, and it never did.
Just one of the 1,000 ideas you got to recycle to be original, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is completely off topic, but it does make me laugh. Did either of you see the movie Evolution, which was like a sci-fi comedy that came out in like 2002-ish, not 2001?
With David Duchovny and the Sprite guy.
David Duchovny and the Seven Up yours.
Wasn't that, and like Julianne Moore? Oh, and what's his face from American Pie? I can't. Sean William Scott.
Stifler. I did laugh at parts, especially the finale episode when they've got the cow, or the big giant slug monster thing. I think they called it the cow, right? Yeah. That was so reminiscent of the movie Evolution. They just took it a little more seriously than that movie did. But yeah, anyway, I just got big vibes from that, and I felt like it needed to be said. I think that we've covered Peacemaker, guys. If y'all don't have anything else that we need to bring up, then we're just going to have to put a pin in this one until season 2 comes around, and we can have Colton back to tell us all of his contributions to the TV Tropes website that he has. Colton, one more time, why don't you plug yourself, plug your podcast? Where can people find you online?
I'm online at My Friend Colton.
Not literally online at the moment because he doesn't have internet at his house, but you can find him on the web.
I'm online through. I didn't use a dial-in connection to connect your most diddly shit.
We should change the name, Miles.
Yeah, that's what we're calling it from now on. Most diddly shit. Your friend Colton everywhere, right?
Yeah, My Friend Colton.
My friend Colton. Excuse me.
And then listen to Poor Baby everywhere.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks so much for coming on today, dude. This was fun chatting with you, and we absolutely will when season 2 comes around, good or bad. We'll have you back on and we'll talk about it, see what we see if we think it holds up compared to season 1. Guys, you can always find Richie and I right here each week, either talking about The Simpsons or whatever other nerdy shit that we decide that we want to talk about that week. Richie, where can they follow us online?
They can follow me at @thewiz_kid23. You can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. I did it in reverse order there to switch it up a little bit. You got to spice it up in the relationship. And most importantly, you can follow our show. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That's BIDDLY.
Hell yeah. I've been teasing it for weeks now, and our schedule has been crazy, so we keep doing other stuff. But we will be back again next week, and we will be talking about the Simpsons episode from season 12, Bye Bye Nerdy.
Join us for the most diddly shit.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.